this is not one of the topics that I had listed, but it's a conversation that I kind of want to have with the incredible people on this panel and the nearly 300 people already here in the chat. And it's an originally, again, just hearing what the community is talking about, very similar to what Fuzzy Belvedere just mentioned. And I kind of want to just point this out. Is it me, gentlemen and chat, or is the tide seemingly turning in Xbox's favor? Because for many, many years, we've heard Xbox has no games, right? And you know what? Listen, being fair, there was a point where they were struggling with first party, and it was, in fact, Gears, Forza, and Halo. Those days, though, are long behind Xbox. And I'm not exactly sure if we can look back to, E3 of 2018, where they announced these 5 studios that they purchased. And was it better since then? Because if you look back at like 2022, it was probably the worst year in Xbox history for first party. It was a failure of a year. Everything got delayed, and they had to depend on, and even though they had some pretty good third-party deals, they had to depend on third-party content because all of their content, their first-party content, was delayed. But since 2022, Xbox themselves, as well as Xbox Game Pass, has been on an upswing for not only first-party games, but third-party, second-party, and indie content. But it doesn't start and stop there. If you just look at the trajectory of the brand right now versus PlayStation, again, we're not going to talk about Nintendo. They have a console coming out. Yes, a lot of us are getting it. A lot of us are still upset about $80 games, which, again, it's going to completely change the way I buy Switch games moving forward. But we're going to keep Nintendo Switch out of the conversation. We're going to simply talk about PlayStation versus Xbox, right? Now, one in PlayStation is still, in fact, the market leader. When I say the market leader, I'm not saying in Mindscape. I'm talking about simply, hey, they have sold 77 million consoles, right? They are doing some things that a lot of people like, but they're doing a lot of things that people don't like. Like, for instance, not having first-party content like they used to. And when I talk about this seismic swing that you're starting to see in front of you, it's hard to argue that Xbox not only has stolen the zeitgeist of the conversation in the gaming community, they are hitting each and every month of the year. And I'm talking about game releases. I'm talking about show announcements. I'm talking about, potential future hardware in handheld and, this rumored mythical PC-like box underneath your TV. And on top of that, we are just under 3 weeks out from the biggest show of the year, and that is the Xbox Game Showcase. And when you take everything, and again, I'm not going back 3-4 years. I'm saying let's just work with the now, a Crispy Bomb. Let's just talk about January 2025 to where we are. We're coming in on the end of May. June will be here next week. And in the first 5 months of 2025, Sony finds themselves very much behind the 8 ball, and Xbox continues to dominate the conversation. And you know what's super interesting, Crispy Bomb? It's not about just console sales. Now, again, there is a subset of people in this community, some may even be here now, that want to try and sell you on this lie that it's all about console sales. And it's just narrative changers, goalpost movers, if you will, right? Everything and anything to make their point of the conversation the winning side. It'll be, exclusives. It'll be timed exclusives. It'll be console sales. It'll be this or that. But if we just take a step back, right? We're going to pull a Steel Rain, of course, one of the greats in the community, and take a RTS look at the playing field. And what we're talking about with Xbox is incredibly different than what we are talking about with PlayStation. And I'm going to break that down real quick. PlayStation, right? Anything or anytime you talk about PlayStation right now today, it's, well, they sold 77 million consoles. You know what? That's freaking awesome. Good on them, right? But that's it. That's the only upside to a PlayStation conversation right now. What's the main draw? Bungie, $3.6 billion waste of money. Marathon, a potential failure. Supposed to release this year. Good luck with that, Charlie Brown. Concord leads the conversation of the worst waste of money in gaming history, worse than ET on 2600. And then, of course, you had last week, if you guys and gals remember, we talked about Jade Raymond, whether she left on her own or she was removed. She is no longer the head of the studio she created in Haven Studios. And that game, Fair Games, nowhere to be found. It's very likely it's getting canceled. And again, if we're being fair and we're being earnest, Crispy Bomb, the big story out of PlayStation is they had one of their own first-party games in the top 10, and the 5 out of the 7 top games in their top 10 list are from Xbox Game Studios. That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for PlayStation because they don't have their own wares. I want to get into why you personally think there is this potential shift in, and again, I don't know if Microsoft or Xbox is going to be the market leader, but they are certainly going to be the platform holder that has the most games, and they are definitely going to be in the conversation when Switch 2 releases, because I'm sure a lot of the games that are on PlayStation right now will be finding their way over to Switch 2. Let's get your personal thoughts on the current Xbox zeitgeist versus what PlayStation kind of seems to have stepped in.
I mean, first off, for anybody that subscribes to Game Pass, you're looking at this. We're not even technically at 6 months yet. Yeah, we're close, but we're not there yet. And the amount of games is like an oh crap moment. Like, wow, this is almost too much. Okay, like it becomes like we're not even talking about like some of these games are technically being shadow dropped into Game Pass. Like we're not even talking about it anymore. That's how many games that they're providing. You know, like the retro classics thing. I was like, are you kidding me? These games, I mean, are old. Okay, like we're not talking like the remaster of the remaster of the remaster. Okay, and they're within like within a 10-year span, you have 3 remasters. Like, come on now. Okay, we're talking games that have never been even put into a service like this. And it's absurd to think that console sales is all that matters. Because you can have all the console sales you want, but if you ain't got no games to play, what you going to do about it? And this is where you say, oh, okay, Xbox, thank you. You gave me Forza. Xbox, thank you. You gave me Indiana Jones. Oh, thank you, Xbox. Oh, wait. All these games are in Game Pass. All this money I'm spending on PlayStation, eventually it's going to come to fruition where you say, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore because I'm getting close to spending what I spent on the console at the time when I bought it. And then you have people that maybe still have a PS4 or a 360 saying, you know what? Maybe it's time to move, but where am I going to move? That's up to them. But it's a conundrum for PlayStation right now because when you have all those games selling very well, They look at their older IP that is actually older, that's never been released on Xbox. And they're probably looking the same way, that Microsoft just said, hey, we're going to take all the heat. We're going to take everything. We're going to take, all the banter, all the disruption. We're going to take it all because we believe this is the path forward. But they're also releasing games that you just never played, and they might be older. They might be kind of newer, but still older. These are things that they're doing. But then all of a sudden, an exclusive comes out. I mean, I don't know if Xbox even had anything to do with it. You don't know. We'll find out probably at some point. But that's the way you got to look at it. Now it's a big deal because a remaster of a really old game is only on Xbox. It's kind of redundant and stupid because you've talked out of both sides of your mouth. You should be cheering this on. Oh, they have an exclusive. That's what you should be doing, Stans. Come on now. So we look at this, and we always knew that they're not going to release everything until a certain point in time where they want more sales. They want to kind of let the PlayStation player know that, hey, we do have some really good games. And I think we're at a cusp because, I mean, we could bring in, like, were they courting the FTC to let it go? Let it go, let it go. Okay. Were they saying, oh, I mean, it was kind of funny when they were like, oh, Hellblade 2. And then what? Right there. Oh, okay. FTC's done. Oh, okay. Here's an exclusive. It's one of those things where I say, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't wait to play day one on PlayStation. I'm like, I don't see that. I'm telling you right now, they're giving you a little taste with Gears Reloaded. That does not mean that you're going to get the pinnacle of what they've been working on in E-Day in your console day one. You might get it a year, 2 years later. But I'm telling you, this is where we can have that argument. Like, are they playing a game to, have the regulators lay off them? That's one of those things you don't know unless you're sitting in the boardroom. And, at the same time, everybody keeps bringing up console sales. And I say, yeah, but you can, if you just sub to Game Pass and have a newer TV, you can play it on there with your controller and everything. They're playing a different game. You need to understand that they don't care about certain subset of people's feelings, but they sure as hell have proven that they're going to give us games. And I mean, this year has been absurd, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think that's why they raised the price of the console, because they don't think that anybody's going to be able to touch them. Any publisher, any gaming company is going to be able to touch them with the amount of games, and especially dropping into Game Pass. I think they're just, maybe that's why they didn't raise the price of Game Pass. They're like, hey, you can play it wherever you want. Maybe PlayStation will allow us, or Nintendo will allow us to have it on there at some point. But until then, you still have plenty of options. And I think that's the way they're looking at it. And, they're just going to keep making games. And I'm all for it. I'm sorry. I like game experience. I never played, the original Warhammer. Like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be in Game Pass. I just get to play it. Like, it's a stupid narrative at this point with the console sales. Like, if you don't have nothing to play, why are you going to be whining about, oh, I got 77 million console sales? No, you didn't get it. Sony got it, but now they're fumbling over their own. How many cancellations? How many this? How many that? How many times you're going to build this giant tower of crap and nobody says a word? Because I'm not seeing a lot of, media influencers or anybody else really calling them out. There's a few. But seriously, it's getting a little redundant, and it's getting a little ridiculous at this point.
Great stuff as always, brother. Look, at the end of the day, it's Gorkenstein. When you look at what Xbox is doing versus what PlayStation is doing, and I'm sorry to say, this is not piling on the rabbit, right? This is just, let's just take the facts and read them aloud. And the fact of the matter is that PlayStation, every other day that you hear something from them, it's bad news. And it has been like that for weeks and months. Right? This isn't new. All right. They are in a tailspin, right? We know thanks to the head of Naughty Dog that they're working on a quote unquote secret game that he is overseeing. He's not directing, he's not producing, he's overseeing it. What's the secret game? Well, I mean, it could be I would personally love for them to say they're doing an Uncharted game. But would they do one without him? I don't know, right? Um, are they going to do work on potentially The Last of Us 3? They said they were, then they said they weren't. So that we really don't know. But they are working on something, at least that you can say that, okay, they're working on something. And he said it, so I believe him. But Korkenstein, if you just take a step back and you look at what Xbox has been doing, at any point, at any showcase or any dev direct kind of a thing, the announcement of the Xbox Retro Collection, Classics Collection would have been done and would probably have brought the house down. Now, shout out to Dark Player 2 in the chat. And they asked me, have you played the Xbox Retro Classics? So my answer to you is, well, last night, Mrs. Boom was doing some stuff, talking to her sisters on the phone. And I'm like, you know what? I want to get down. But I got to get back into Call of Duty, new season starting. I got to get my skills back up. So, of course, I didn't do they have the Gotcha 6 thing that they're doing right now. I want to finish that. And I could have played anything. I got to get back to Expedition 33. I'm shamefully so early in that game. But I did do what I needed to do in Doom, so I'm very excited about that. But for 3+ hours yesterday, I played the Xbox Retro Classics. I played everything. I played Atlantis. I played River Raid. And I folks, I'm not even going to front. Like, I'm very transparent, man. I don't mind being it. I started playing the boxing game, and I literally almost started to cry. And I say that because my dad and I used to play that all the time. And you know what? He used to beat the hell out of me. And I'm like, my God, how's this old man so good? And it hit me like a wave of emotions from this old sticks and dots game. And you know what? I spent over 3 hours playing it. I was doing community challenges. I unlocked a bunch of achievements. There's 1,000. I got 300. Like I said, there's so much to play that I just want to play everything, but I got to get back to that. I want to play some old games. It's crazy. But my whole point of that conversation, Korkenstein, was this announcement was done via a tweet and a presser. Like, what does that ultimately say, ladies and gentlemen? I'll tell you what it says. It says Xbox has so much in the tank. They're working on so many games. They're working on so many deals that on the same day, ReFantazio, one of last year's biggest RPGs, drop in the bucket. It's in Game Pass. It's crazy, right? And we're having this conversation because there are two platforms going in 100% opposite direction. Sony isn't dying. They're not going anywhere. But if you are going to be a Sony fan and try to insinuate that there is nothing wrong at SIE, you are either blind, a fanboy, or don't want to realize the truth. And I'm going to say to you what many PlayStation fans have said to Xbox gamers over the years. Demand better. Demand better from your platform. And you know what they do? They bend over and they just take whatever Sony gives them. And that's a damn shame. That is an absolute shame. Let's talk about these two platforms going in opposite directions. And it seems like Sony absolutely spiraling out of control. And you cannot argue that. You cannot say, oh, well, they're doing this good. They are literally doing nothing good right now. Nothing except buying Xbox games. And that's not Sony, that's the actual PlayStation players who actually enjoy their machine. Xbox, on the other hand, has a showcase. Now, next in a couple of weeks, that block of Friday to Sunday is going to have a multitude of shows outside of the Xbox Game Showcase and Keeley's event. There's going to be a couple of shows, and there have been confirmation that we read or talked about this week. Me and Fuzzy talked about it, that Xbox could potentially have several games at each one of these shows. And again, it just leads to the conversation where we started. Xbox has so many games they're working on, it's almost unfair. Let's get your thoughts on these two platforms going in opposite directions.
I hate to tell some of y'all. No, actually, no, I'm not even gonna lie. I love to tell some of y'all. I told you so. I told you so. This is exactly. It's not about the console sales anymore. It's never been about console sales. It's never been about, despite what a lot of the games, some games journalists and PlayStation fanboys and some content creators want to tell you, it doesn't matter. Console sales aren't the metric, and they've never been the metric. They were only a metric because people wanted to use it to console war, and it's never been about that. You could get 100 million people to buy your console, but if they aren't consistently spending in it, you're not generating the revenue that you should be generating. And this is what Xbox is doing. It's not this is why they stopped reporting on console sales years and years ago. Because it's about how you can keep people in your ecosystem. Guess what Game Pass is doing? Keeping people in your ecosystem, keeping people spending that monthly $20 a month. That kind of mentality is what Xbox is doing, and they're offering these amazing things. Look at the retro. I mean, I have so much stuff to play. I'm still playing Clair Obscur. I'm still playing Doom. I got Calubra, which is actually a really awesome kind of game. I really actually like a little adventure game. I'm also playing the two new simulators that came out, Firefighter and the Police Simulator.
Man, wow, your plate is full, dude.
Yeah, I'm still trying to make my way through here. I'm still trying to finish my 100% of Blueprints. There's so much, and then now Metaphor Retest, yes, it's coming out. Like it's insane. The amount of content and what we're getting, and that's what's leading Xbox to the success that they're having. It's just a constant slate of amazing titles, and it's really is for the gamer. PlayStation, like I said, they've been struggling. They even said, we talked about it last time, about Will Broke Boy Lewis. He ended up posting the article that they were looking to look at MAUs in 2017, 2018. And then they kind of did with Jim Ryan's plan, which failed. And the reason that failed is they have zero clue. I don't think he had his pulse. You guys can hate Xbox, you guys can trash Phil Spencer as much as you guys like, but they have a very, very, good read, a good pulse, ear to the ground, whatever you want to say, with the gaming community of what it takes, and what they want. And I don't think Jim Ryan had that. Their mentality was like, let's take our biggest popular single player IPs and try and make them gas. And the gameplay loop just isn't there. They thought that they could make something to generate revenue. How can we get more money out of these people with IPs they already like? And it's not a 1-for-1. And that's why God of War multiplayer or gas is canceled. Factions is canceled. The Spider-Man game is canceled. All these mega games that they had in the slate are canceled. It's just a complete tailspin because, like I said, PlayStation pushed this narrative of console sales, exclusives. And we've learned already time and time again, even from the leak that happened, 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, that the exclusives weren't making the money.
Yeah,
it was making them. Well, I'll rephrase. It was making them money, It just wasn't making the money that it should have because they had the incredibly high development budgets.
Yep.
Disney was taking an arm and a leg from them in royalties and licensing and things like that. So their margins were incredibly low. And that's, they weren't making the money that they should have from these IPs. So that's why PlayStation's in the spot that they are. And then, like you said, the two different paths. Xbox is just killing it right now. And it's because they're focusing on what they've always focused on. And no matter how many times people want to say Xbox is dead, they still are here making billions and billions and billions, every year for the last few years now. Is because they focused on live service. They focused on subscriptions. They focused on those things that really matter, and that's what drives you to success. And now we're seeing it. This is why PlayStation has constantly copied Xbox on almost everything these last couple of gens. Game Pass came out, and then now they're like, oh well, we need to hurry up and get something similar to it. And then you have the new PlayStation Plus. It backwards compatibility things, how they, Sony wasn't on board, now they are on board. They just don't know what their consumer base really wants. I guess I don't know. It's just a weird thought process because you see how completely different both sides are. And you mentioned it earlier too, Boom, just real quick, about the changing of the tides. And it
Yes.
slowly is. I've seen new narratives now from a very prominent podcast or I guess content creators, a group of them, where the narrative now changed to like, well, what if Xbox dies? What's that going to do for the industry? It's like, listen, if Xbox dies, the industry has already probably been done and gone for well before then. But that narrative changed to like, oh, Xbox is dead, they don't know what you're doing, to now moving the goalpost and switching it around to be like, well, what if they die? Like, you're doom creating. You're creating these FUD narratives because y'all just don't want to miss or don't want to admit Xbox has been killing it, always has been killing it. And now you guys got to create these new fear narratives to justify your sensational clickbait.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm happy. I've always been happy as an Xbox consumer. I've never felt like I've been slighted or that they haven't done right by me. I'm still getting games. I'm still playing games for $20 a month. I'm still buying games in their ecosystem. Like I said, look at all the games I'm playing, whether it's on PC, whether it's on Xbox. I'm still in the Xbox ecosystem. And that's all that matters.
Indeed. And again, it's the way Xbox is doing things right now isn't as simple as a broad stroke, Fuzzy Belvedere. And again, some of the things that they are doing and they will be doing in the next couple of years are sensational. And when I mean sensational, we don't know what's going to happen, but the two pieces of hardware that are rumored to be coming out in 2027, according to Jez Corden of Windows Central, which we talked about on Primetime Gaming the other evening, where, again, we've already heard all of the potential specs, thoughts, and theories of this PC-like Xbox for next gen, right? But we heard some new information regarding the dockable, handheld, and again, like Hargeet and Kayasante and I discussed on Wednesday evening, it almost seems to mirror their current format. And that is the X and the S, right? So whatever the next Xbox is going to be, it's probably going to be no less than $700 to get in. And maybe it's more. I don't know. But it's going to be expensive because it's going to be a console that's very powerful. It's going to be open sourced. It is going to be unlike anything that they have ever done before in the console space. But this dockable handheld, what it seems to me anyway, is yes, it is going to be powerful. But is it going to be as powerful as the box under the TV? No, but I think there's a reason for that. I think the reason for that is that it's going to be the welcome into Xbox next gen cheaper, right? You'll be able to take it on the go, like the Switch. You'll be able to dock it, and it'll be able to have, and maybe, again, this is just a thought and a theory, that the actual dock is sold separately, and it has actual parts in there where when you dock it, it gives you more power because it's docked. And because this dock actually does more than a Nintendo Switch dock, which is just literally a piece of plastic with a couple of plugs. That's what it is. So maybe that's what they do. But again, when I say this isn't a broad stroke, it's not. And it starts with little things like yesterday's 50 games dropped into Xbox Game Pass for a retro classic collection. And of course, Jason Ronald came out almost immediately and said, hey, we're working on a lot more games being added. That was just a drop in the bucket announcement. That could have been a major talking point at one of their shows. But this is why I'm saying, folks, that the platform holders, or at least the current platform holders, meaning Xbox and PlayStation, the narrative is shifting and Xbox is winning the conversation. Yesterday, out of complete nowhere, and this is what I'm talking about. These are the finite additional points that people leave out of the conversation of who's doing things for the fans and who is just talking about console sales. Now, everyone knows that I did not like The Witcher 3, and I know that I'm weird for that. I love open world games with a lot of stuff to do. I tried to play it 3 different times, and I got to the same point 10 hours in each time, and I was like, you know what? The potion creation thing sucks. I don't like it. I don't like having to, put the solvent on your sword to fight each board. I don't want to know. Just give me a sword. Let me just chop something in front of me and call it a day, and I'm good. That's not what The Witcher 3 is, so that's probably why I didn't like it. But why I'm bringing up The Witcher 3 is they celebrated the 10th anniversary, and that's a really big deal. It's probably one of the best games anyone has ever played. Right? You talk about some of the best DLC ever released, and Xbox, out of complete nowhere, drops a free dynamic theme for your console, and then just out of nowhere, oh, by the way, here is a special edition controller for, and you get 2 flavors. You got the standard version, you got the elite version. The elite automatically sold out, which, by the way, right now is $500 on eBay right now. Okay. And again, you might say, well, Boom, it's just another controller. Okay. If that's how you feel, that is just one thing on top of so many things that make the Xbox brand the place that you want to play. And you know what's even more interesting? We got a couple of stats from Clobreel regarding console sales. Whoa, what about that? Almost 9% increase in the month of April. I wonder why that is. Maybe because of, Expedition 33 dropping into Game Pass with Oblivion Remake and a whole bunch of other things. And on top of that, now you got Doom. And they saw an increase of 18% in what? Not console sales. Console sales was almost 9%. They got an 18% bump in Game Pass subscribers. Interesting. So again, folks, you have a storied, platform like PlayStation, who is currently the market leader and did not get there by mistake. They have earned that spot by putting together a lot of really incredible content year after year. But they can no longer rest on those laurels. And for the last couple of years, they've had no shows, right? Their state of plays have been nothing short of garbage, right? We know that supposedly, and we're going to talk about this to kind of segue into this, the story from Jeff Grubb, where he hears there may be a PlayStation showcase, or it might be one of their, directs, if you will. But it's, he's not sure. Listen, folks, I'm here to tell you this. I don't know, and this is me just stabbing in the dark, but it ain't going to be a showcase. And I'm going to tell you why. They don't got nothing to show you. They got nothing to show you. Their cards, they're holding their cards at the vest. Guess what? They're blank. There ain't nothing there. It's all a farce. Sony has no games. That is an absolute fact. Let's get your thoughts on the platforms both going in opposite directions and again, seeing the market leader potentially slip a bit.
Well, as somebody that has both platforms, I think the only thing I'm really looking forward to as far as on PlayStation is Ghost of Yotai. Sure, they've showed Intergalactic. That's a couple of years away. Wolverine is kind of a question mark that might be next year. But there really isn't anything on the up and coming list other than, I mean, if you're a fan of Baby Steps and looking forward to that, I think that might be at the State of Play next month. But, you also have Death Stranding 2, which more than likely will repeat what Death Stranding 1 did and come to Xbox eventually. So we'll see what they have to show us next month. I think it's a State of Play, but we'll get more into that. But like I said, as somebody that holds both platforms, there isn't much that I'm turning my PlayStation on for. Yes, I play a good bit of GT7. Yes, they had a recent update where they added 4 cars and still no new tracks. When you compare that to what Forza Horizon's doing, they're adding cars on a regular basis and adding either different modes or different, not necessarily tracks, because they don't really do tracks in the open world, but you have a lot of creators that make tracks. Like there's now what a lot of people used to do on some of the other sim racing games, like Assetto Corsa, where you can dip and dodge out in and out of traffic and stuff like that. Hizzy or Heisy, I forget what they call it, but it's like that's one of the things that a lot of people like to do, and you can actually do that now in Forza Horizon 5. It would be nice if GT7 had a mode like that. You can kind of do that with a group of 8, but there really isn't any traffic with 8 cars, so much for that. But just in general, what Xbox has been doing, whether it's loading up Game Pass, and it's good to see that they're actually increasing subscriptions and stuff, but they've been loaded since, like you said, towards the later part of 2022 moving forward. Hellblade 2 was like the big thing for 2023. It takes a couple of years. Now it's going to come to PS5. I hope a lot of PS5 guys are happy to see it. I know there was a lot of pushback as far as if it was, game changing as far as being something that looks like a movie, but you're actually playing with the visuals in Unreal Engine 5. And like I said before, there will likely be a 60 frames mode coming because it looks like Xbox in general has learned, or a lot of their dev teams have learned how to push the barriers on Unreal Engine 5. And this is before Coalition even drops theirs. But they've been helping a lot of other teams behind the scenes. So with all of that being said, it's funny how Xbox is doing more for PlayStation than PlayStation is doing for PlayStation, but nobody really wants to talk about that. But I would say, just taking a step back as a gamer, looking at both platforms where you have all of this interest in info on new games and subscription stuff that, is, I would say, a great value. And I know not everybody that's a gamer looks at value, but after you spend 60, 70, 80 on a game, on a couple of games versus, spending that and having access to a lot more games in a, longer period of time, I think Game Pass is now really starting to come into its own. Sure, the exclusives thing, as far as how, Xbox has been moving is not to the hardcore fans liking, but in general, we're still getting things that would have been on like 2 generations ago coming back as a remaster that's showing up as an exclusive at the moment. Kind of saw the opposite with some of the Capcom stuff, but they hopped on that and made sure the Capcom things were coming to the platform as well. Yep. So Xbox is really pushing to be that hub for gamers. So if you didn't have a console before, or you're still on the 360 or PS3, it's definitely looking like the place to come to as far as having either your existing library move forward with you or getting access to a lot of, next generation games at a lower price. Sure, there was a price increase on the Series S, but the 512 is still out there. The expansion card prices are coming down. We'll see if all the other prices as far as hardware, stays about the same, considering there's a pause for like 90 days on tariffs. It's only been a matter of time, whether, unless the tariffs are completely removed, or it's one of those things where they just kind of go back and then everybody's up in arms about the pricing increasing again or whatever. We'll see. But in the grand scheme of things, much like I think Crispy had made mention earlier, you don't even need that box. You can get the actual, access to the games through either just subscribing to Game Pass, playing it on a tablet or playing it on your PC. Or if you got one of those newer LG or Samsung TVs, you can play it that way as well. Plus, there's a good bit of people that can play it through their phone. So I think one of the other big things is even if you're on an Xbox One, you can actually stream a lot of those games that are only for the series consoles on that. Sure, streaming may not be the best depending on your internet and everything, but they're making it so the gamer has access to games at pretty much at all costs type of deal. But looking at PlayStation now, they're having to put out fires within Bungie. They've canceled a ton of their gas games, which some of the fan base is cheering, which I get it. You prefer the single player story driven narrative games, and that's great. But just imagine all that money they've wasted on those games as a service that are going to take away from the amount of single player games that you'll see in the next 2 to 5 years type of deal. Me as a PlayStation owner, I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do to fill in the gaps other than like the Chinese initiative that they have with a lot of these smaller dev teams out of that Southeast region that'll be coming to the platform.
You're
That's
talking
great.
about the China project, as they call it. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that they have that lined up, but that might not be enough, especially if you're not into a Souls-like type of game. Not all of them are Souls-like, but that's not everybody's jam. So if it's your jam, great. I could see you being happy and looking forward to that stuff. But if Souls-likes aren't your jam, then really what are they pushing for their player base? Sure, there's the casual, titles like COD as well as 2K and Madden and stuff like that they could look forward to. But outside of that, they really don't have the draw like they once did. Like the PS4 generation was all about drawing them in with their exclusives and their variety of story-driven narrative titles. Them not having that now and Xbox having that, it seems like it's helping Xbox in the long term, although people want to say they're dead and are in this weird aspect of saying, well, Doom didn't do as well. Well, it's been the fastest, player acquisition as far as player base of any of the Doom previous ones. It may not have been doing as well on Steam, but then again, a lot of people are realizing, well, sign up for Game Pass, whether it's PC Game Pass or console Game Pass, and play it that way as opposed to going through Steam. But we'll see in the grand scheme of things. I'm looking forward to the showcase next month to see what we're getting for the second half of the year. We already know a handful of the titles that are coming, like Ninja Gaiden 4, but there's going to be some more they're going to surprise us with. As far as that showcase for PlayStation, it would be nice if Gran Turismo came to PC. I've been saying that for a while, but I don't foresee that happening anymore. I don't know what their thoughts are on the whole PC storefront, but outside of that, Ghost of Yotai is the only thing I'm really looking forward to, at least in the next 12 months. But for gamers, I say go where the games are. And right now, Xbox has got all the games. Forget the stupid narratives from the Xbox One generation of Xbox now having no games. Now they have so many games, they have to share them with the other platforms. That should tell you something. But, people want to, still console war and whatnot. But, I'd rather spend my time playing games. And right now, Game Pass has got my my gaming calendar kind of filled. So that's it.